Joyce, you mentioned the chronic dysfunction of the budget process, the federal budget process. What has led to this dysfunction? You alluded to it earlier in your previous response, but more importantly, is it the erosion of consensus by some of the participants that have led us to where we are today? And would providing process reform really bring that consensus back?
It's a very good question. I think that the answer to the first question really sort of logically flows into the answer to the second. It is such a political problem and so much not a procedural problem that I am one who's very skeptical about the ability of the process to do anything about it. But let's go back to why we have the dysfunction that we have. I think the short answer is that political leaders, and I use the term advisedly, care more about gaining partisan advantage than they do about governing, and they do about making sure that government operates well. I don't mean this as a partisan statement necessarily, it's just an example, but sometime, I don't know when it was, 2009, 2010, Minority Leader Mitch McConnell in the Senate made the statement that the primary goal of the Republican Party was to make President Obama a one-term president. That is not a recipe for governing. It's not a recipe for achieving consensus. And so if both parties are trying to kind of look and see how they can gain political advantage over the other one, it doesn't encourage them to compromise. Now, part of what I think is kind of symptomatic of this is that we don't have many moderates left in either the House of Representatives or the Senate. There used to be not a majority, but at least a sort of critical mass of people who were in the middle. But they were very important because they helped things get done. And so you could get a coalition of moderates of both parties to align with, some Republicans on one side or some Democrats on the other side in order to get things done. Increasingly, the parties are very polarized. Now, there's a number of reasons for that, including redistricting, which has led in part to this polarization because both parties have been trying to create a larger number of sort of safe districts for their members. So you have heavily Republican districts, heavily Democratic districts. But the fact is that that you just haven't had a lot of people expressing moderate views. Now there is some good news here, which is that if you've been following some of the discussions on these fiscal cliff debates, there are some people on both sides, and I think especially in the Senate as opposed to the House, who've begun to express more moderate views on issues such as taxes and entitlements. You have some Republicans saying, yes, under some circumstances they could imagine seeing taxes raised. You've had some Democrats who have said, yes, they do believe that entitlement programs, spending is growing too fast and that we need to do something about that. So that at least gives us some hope that things might be turning around, at least at the margin. But still, you have a number of people in both parties who have fairly extreme views, and it's very hard to sort of reconcile those together. The people who get probably the most press about this are the Tea Party Republicans, who have, many of them relatively extreme views on the right. But there also are people who will take the position in the Democratic Party that under no circumstance should we ever touch Medicare or Social Security as a part of an effort to reduce the deficit. And the fact is that we have to do both of those things. It's not a choice between raising taxes and cutting spending. It is raising taxes and cutting spending, and the question is just which taxes and what spending.
Exactly.